Right. And I guess we're recording now. So good morning. I'm with Brian Higgins, who's a teacher in the Wenatchee school system. And we're having a conversation this morning about our sons and daughters and online classes and how us as parents can help them. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Perrin. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good, thank you. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and what you're doing, because I know you're doing some things online with students. So just give just a brief background so everybody kind of is on the same page.
Sure. I teach high school English at Wenatchee High School. I've taught there for 10 years now. And I teach all levels, freshman through senior. I also teach stagecraft and debate and drama and AVID. So I teach all across the spectrum at the high school there. And just a little something besides that, while I've been teaching for 10 years, last year I was the Chelan County Excellence Award winner for education. So
Cool.
yeah, so there's a little bit about me. I also have my master's degree in teacher leadership. So
Cool. Well, that's good. What about how many classes a day do you teach?
So right now I have 3 classes a day and they switch out every other day. So I have a total of 6 classes that I teach this year. I'll teach 5 classes first semester, and then one of those classes will switch during second semester. I'll teach 5 classes second semester, and that is a lot of classes. They call them preps. So I have 6 different preps, so 6 classes I have to prepare for. And usually you shoot for like two preps. So
Gotcha.
It's challenging. It's also challenging that every other day, most of those classes switch. So
and then these classes now are all online, right?
And they're all online, which has been, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. First off, there's a lot less hands-on in the classroom, and I'm a performer and an actor, so I depend a lot on audience interaction.
Sure.
The immediate interaction and emotion from audience, and I use that in my classroom all the time, and so I've had to go without that. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
It's especially been a challenge that we don't have access to facilities. I teach stagecraft and facilities use, which is a lot about using the staging area, the auditorium in the school, and the students get a ton of hands-on, and we can't do any of that because we can't do it at all.
Yeah, that'd be tough. A class, about how long is it? Is it when you're doing online with your students? Is it a 60-minute, 30-minute?
So normally our classes are 85. We have 85-minute blocks, which we've reduced to 70-minute blocks this year so that students aren't constantly having to stare at their screen. So we have 70-minute classes and then 25-minute break periods in between each class so that students can walk away from their computer, which I think is a pretty important thing to do throughout the day.
I would think so. Yeah, I just took a seminar, and the morning session of it was from 8 until noon. And I was gaga by the time noon got around because it was just the same speaker the whole time. And it was just, wow. Okay. I guess, so how do you know how do you keep your students involved? And then ultimately, what can parents do to keep their students involved?
It's hard right now to figure out if students are involved. When I'm in the classroom, I'm pretty good at what they call with itness, which is knowing when your students are engaged and when they've stopped listening or faded away. And it's a lot different in the remote classroom because students don't have to have their screens on, so you can't even tell if they're at their computer most of the time. So in order to be sure that I have students engaged, I ask questions a lot. I ask for them to respond with emojis as much as I possibly can, or I'm building to that. But also I do a lot of review throughout so that if students, as a teacher, if students have to use the bathroom or go get a snack, I want them to just go and do it. And I periodically review everything I'm teaching, and every 10 minutes or so I review so that if students miss a part of it, they still have access to that.
Okay.
How can parents make sure their students are engaged? The number one thing I would say is build a good work space. I think that if you can build a workspace for your student where this is where school and homework happens, and that's all that happens in this space, and you can remove a lot of other distractions from that space, the student's going to be very successful because they're going to connect that space with what they should be doing in that space. So Making sure that they have access to their computers, paper, pencils, notes, maybe a snack, but then removing toys, removing the television, making sure that either their space is facing the wall or it's facing some, like, not an open window necessarily because there's some distraction out there,
Yeah.
but making it so they can focus directly on what's in front of them. I think that's super, super important. So having a workspace that is just for that work and that homework, and making sure that that's what they use it for. And that also, as a parent, helps you tell your kids to take a break and they know they have to get away. And that tells you that when they're away, they're definitely not doing schoolwork. So,
Yeah, sure.
and that's important too, because a lot of the time I think that parents, we assume that some of that schoolwork just gets done. But if we are consistently telling our kids to do that in that space every time, then we know for a fact that when they're not in that space, they're not doing homework, which is good.
Right.
So you know that when they're in that space, that's what they should be doing. So.
Sure, understand. Any other big tips for parents to help keep their kids interested and alert? And
to be honest, I don't even know how to make sure kids are interested in school most of the time. Without being entertaining. I would say that probably a great place for parents to really start looking at how to help their students is to ask questions. I know that I've had some parents come forward with concerns about how much screen time students have. And so I've made the suggestion that if you think that in reality, parents and teachers and students it's a triangle of learning. Like, the student knows the most about what they have learned. The teacher knows the most about how to teach that content. And then the parent knows the most about who their kid is and how they react to different stimulus in the world around them. And so only by all three communicating with each other, can we make sure that they get the most out of education. So making sure that the parent, if they know their student has needs, or if they know that there's too much for their student, asking questions of the teacher is going to be the best way to do that. So I've had parents who have said they just can't have their kids spending 70 minutes in a row at a computer staring at a screen, which is understandable for me, but I've got to provide this education to 30 students. So my suggestion for those parents is to say, hey, what part of the lesson is a great time for me to tell my kid to take a 5-minute break from staring at the screen?
Sure.
And as a teacher, my first response is, well, all parts of the lesson are equally important, but that's not always true. So I can certainly say, I do reviews at this point, and this point, and this point, and I'll do that every day. So that second review is a great time for you to tell your student to just walk away from the computer.
Got it.
But being able to ask questions like that, Perrin, like, if you know how your kid is working through something, asking those questions is important. So
Good. Well, hey, I think it's a little longer than I thought we were going to go, but I think it was really useful. And maybe we can get together in a week or so and do part 2.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, Brian, thank you very much. Here, I'll just stop the recording now.